Hey guys, Charles from Halt Boots here, and today we are going over my in-depth and on-feet review of the new Copa Pure 2.1. So this is the new Copa that Adidas have dropped. I'm not really sure why they didn't even give the Copa Pure.1 a full year. It seems like they gave it 8 months maybe, and I honestly thought the Copa Pure.1 was a good boot, the first gen. I didn't really have a lot of issues with it, and I know a lot of people have been enjoying the new Copa Pure 2.1, and I've heard a lot of boot reviewers, boot heads, friends, and retailers that I know say that Adidas has really listened to a lot of feedback, and that's why they made this adjustment, or they just listened to a lot of what everybody had to say about it. And I'm not really sure what everybody was telling Adidas, but I think it was the wrong thing. I really like the first gen, like I said, and I overall just feel like they've kind of downgraded this boot, and I would have rather them done something like a brand new model. It seems like they try to take the approach of the Copa 19 and the Copa 20, where there was just so many slight differences it didn't even matter. But again, I don't know what they were doing here. Now, that doesn't mean that this is an awful boot that nobody should buy, but in my opinion, it's definitely just not what it could have been. Sticking with the $230 price tag was okay. You know, at least they didn't raise it. Should they have lowered it? I think so. I honestly think that all the Adidas boots are just a little overpriced right now. But with that being said, we're just gonna jump right into the review, and as always, we're gonna start with the sole plate. So I've talked about this sole plate so many times now. It's the torsion frame sole plate that was originally on the Nemesis 17.1, and it was used on the Copa Pure. It's been used on the Adidas 11 Pro remake and several other boots at this point, I believe. So I'm not going to go too much in depth on it. I just feel like I've been saying so much of the same stuff about this sole plate. It's a decent sole plate. It's nothing crazy, but it's reliable. It's decent on turf. There's not a lot of studs catching or anything like that. And on grass, it's pretty good. I mean, it's an FG sole plate. I just feel like the studs aren't quite as aggressive. So if it's even just a little bit slick out there, the ground's wet, you're going to slide around a lot. So that's just something to think about. But otherwise, I think it's a really good sole plate for someone who plays on a mix of grass and turf, or if you just play on turf, or if you just play on grass. Now, if we move on to the upper, it's not actually as thick as I first thought it was at first glance. And when I first put these boots on, it does still feel a little bit thicker than the Copa Pure.1, and it doesn't feel quite as soft as the Copa Pure.1. It is still calfskin leather, so I'm not just sure if it's me being super picky or just kind of being a little biased, but it does feel like the upper has been modified just a little bit. And if anything, it does feel like there's almost more like foam, or it feels more foamy, if that makes any sense. Like it's just got a bit more padding in the upper. It's still coated with the fusion skin. And what I actually didn't notice on the Copa Pure.1, it had on the kind of, I guess we'll call them the inserts here, or the indents. On the indents, it had all this micro texturing. And what they've done with the Copa Pure 2 is they've actually reversed it. So instead of having micro texturing on these insets here, or these indents, it's actually on the outer padding, which to me makes more sense. If you're gonna put micro texturing, it should be on the areas where the ball is actually gonna contact. And I don't know, we'll see if we can even see it on the camera. So I had to cut because it wasn't focusing, but you can kind of see the micro texturing there. I'll try to get some better footage of it, but does it really do anything? Probably not. It just doesn't feel really sticky. It doesn't feel like it's really gonna make any difference when you contact the ball. So why they put it on there, I don't know if it's just for design. Maybe they think that it does something, or maybe they've proven it does something, but to me, I just don't think so. Now, if there is one improvement, if we can call it that, with the Copa Pure 2, I would say it's the tongue. Other than the issue that the tongue is more narrow, and it's a lot more prone to tongue slippage, because the more narrow a tongue is, the easier it's going to be to slip. It does feel very soft, so I don't think it's a leather tongue like that was on the Copa Pure 1. It feels almost like the Tajin, I think it's Tajin upper that was on the Vapor 11, and the 2014 Adi Zeros had a really, really soft tongue, and it's why the 2014 Adi Zero is one of my favorite boots. It's up there. It's because of the tongue, and this tongue actually feels super, super soft. And when you have a plush tongue like this, to me, it just really makes me want to wear the boot more, and it just feels so nice whenever you really lace a shot or a long ball or a pass or anything like that, when you feel just that plushness between the ball and your foot. And in my opinion, you know, it's super comfortable, and it just feels amazing. Real quick, I just wanted to let you guys know that we actually have a website, haltsboots.com, where we sell football boots. And what's pretty cool is we have some old models, some new models, a bit of everything in between, and usually we sell stuff at $100 or more under retail. So if you want to purchase a pair, make sure to use YouTube at checkout for 5% off on your order. Probably one of the two things I dislike most about this boot is going to be the heel, and that's just because it feels like it's a takedown model. It reminds me a lot of the Copa Gloro, and they put so much padding on the inside of this boot. It really just, to me, just looks like it's a 0.2 or 0.3 takedown version, at least in the back heel here. It reminds me a lot of the CTR, and that's one thing I didn't like about the CTR, is that just the back heel area felt a lot like a takedown model. And I'm not hating on takedown models if that's what you'd like to wear, you know, if you're wearing takedown models, but if I'm paying $230 for a pair of boots, it's gotta feel like a $230 pair of boots. And you know, it does have some foam insert and it is fairly comfortable, but to me, looks are a lot of the reason why people are paying so much for top end boots, and it doesn't really look like a top end boot. What I think will be better is the plus version of this boot, because it's a complete knit upper. There's no tongue, and that knit upper kind of extends into the heel area on the sides here and then into the back heel. And it's not all this padding, it's a lot thinner, and I think it's just more my style, and it's something that I would have expected on the Copa Pure 2.1 and not just the plus version, because it's just, to me, it just doesn't look right. It looks a little fake, and I'm sure a lot of the pros are going to have a lot thinner heel construction on the inside as well. So as for the comfort, and I know I've made it pretty clear that I don't really like this boot, the comfort was there. It wasn't anything super amazing, but with how there's all this foam and just the thicker padding in the back, it was comfortable. The upper was fairly comfortable. It's not nearly as soft as the Copa Pure 0.1, but you know, it did the job. I did like that tongue a lot. The tongue did make it comfortable, even though it's thinner. A lot of the time you're striking the ball, it was great. And the breaking time was pretty low as well. And kind of what leads into the comfortability is just putting them on the first time and wearing them in a session. I don't know if it was pickup or training session, but you know, I did have a little bit of discomfort in that kind of width area and a little bit in the arch area, but that went away pretty quickly. I want to say within 25-30 minutes. And once your feet really get settled into these, and mine did pretty quickly, probably within the first hour and a half, you really don't have to worry about any sort of discomfort or pain. As for sizing for these, I went with my typical 9 US, and you know, it fit fine. It stretched pretty quickly for my wide feet, but I really couldn't get over this pointed toe. Now, the pointed toe doesn't really get in the way, but it does add probably an extra quarter to almost half space extra, but not for the entire foot. So I couldn't really get away with going with an 8.5, I don't think, because it narrows pretty quickly and it's pretty pointed. If it was rounded, I would say that maybe I could wear an 8.5, but overall, I'm gonna suggest that you just, whatever you normally wear in Adidas, get that size. And on top of that, I'm someone who, when I look down at my feet, if I don't really like how the boots look, it kind of just throws me off and makes me resent the boots a little bit. So this extra pointed toe, looking like a dress shoe, to me just wasn't it, and I don't know why they did this. The Copa Pure 0.1 was a little pointed as well, but to me, it must have fit better or just not be as pointed, because this was just a little too much. Lockdown on these was just okay. I don't really have too much to talk about. There's no real extra eyelet for a runner's loop, so for someone who does that, I'm not. You might struggle a little bit if that's what you need for good lockdown. My feet did move around just a little bit. The lockdown, again, wasn't insane, but at the end of the day, it's not something you're gonna have to worry about too much. And you know, as long as you're not cutting super aggressively, I don't really think a whole lot of bad will come from it. As for durability, not a whole lot to talk about. You know, a little bit of scuffing by the toes, but no separation, which is good. I think I wore them 8 to 10-ish hours, so not very long, but enough to kind of see how the durability will do. And the only other issues I've really heard with are the fusion skin. I have a lot of friends, well, not a lot of friends. I have one friend for sure that I know the fusion skin kind of peeled off, and all it does is expose the leather underneath. Not the end of the world. It may just make the boots look, you know, more damaged, and obviously they are a little bit, but it's not going to affect performance at all. Maybe your boots will get a little bit more wet or soak up some moisture, but you know, exposed leather is going to do that either way. I didn't have it happen on either pairs of my 1s or my 2s, so I don't really know when this will happen, how long it will be. If you play on a lot more turf, I'm assuming it's going to happen quicker to you. But overall, I think these boots are pretty durable and will probably last, you know, at least a season if you're someone who doesn't just abuse their boots like I do. So overall, I'm just giving these a rating of 7.1 out of 10. A C-. I know that seems like it makes them a bad pair of boots, but they're really not. I just think it's a downgrade from what the Copa Pure 0.1 was. and they're just not my cup of tea. I don't think it's a pair I'm gonna wear again. I'm going to get the Plus version just so I can try them out and see if I like the heel construction better, if they're more comfortable, if they're not as pointed, you know, everything I talked about that I didn't like about these boots, and kind of see how it does with the Plus version. Personally, I would rather go with an Adler. They're cheaper, the leather's softer, they fit your feet better. You know, the Tiempo 9, even though it's slightly pointed, fit better and I like a lot more. Even the Tiempo 10 that I've been testing a pair recently, and although it's not leather, they just are a bit more comfortable, and I think something that I like more. So if you like the Copa Pure, give them a try, see if you like them. But somebody like me who's a super boot fanatic, I'm just gonna wear something that's cheaper, that's, you know, softer, and is gonna fit my feet more, which is gonna be like an Adler. Maybe not a Mizuno, maybe like an elite model of Mizuno that are like $180 to $200, which are a little bit cheaper. But you know, overall, okay pair of boots. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy them, just saying maybe you'd want to try something else. 7.1 rating overall, you know, is definitely a downgrade. Definitely a downgrade. That's all I have today on the Copa Pure 2.1. If you guys like this review, you like boot reviews, boot knowledge, boot facts, make sure to check out the rest of our YouTube channel. We have a ton of reviews up right now, a ton of cool videos up. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.